Welcome to M.U.T.S podcast, episode number 62. This is your host, Suman Silwal.
Your limit this week might be a 5K. Do something. Push yourself.
Visit M.U.T.S.com to listen to our previous podcast shows, links to our social media channels, as well as get discount codes for 7 Bridges Marathon and all Southeastern Trail Series events. I'd like to welcome Matt Clem to M.U.T.S podcast. Matt is one of the founder of M.U.T.S, Mississippi Ultra Running Society. Matt, how you doing today?
I'm good, Suman. How are you doing, buddy?
I'm doing great. We met each other at the Lake Martin 100 running, and that was the first time I was introduced to the M.U.T.S. I didn't know what that was, and then there was a bunch of people running t-shirt and following you. I said, you must be some important person there.
Oh goodness, I wouldn't say that, but I will say this though: you were a treat on that run, and our crew referred to you as the picture guy because every time they saw me, they would see you and you would scream out, "Take my picture." So they always from then on, they called you the picture guy because you were always so happy. And then when we're going up Heaven Hill for the second time, which was that like mile 30 or something like that, Suman, you were struggling and you were saying this is just the most difficult portion of this course every year. It gets me. And then when we got to the top of Heaven Hill, you kind of faded back, and I didn't see you probably for another 15 hours. And to be honest with you, I was thinking, did Suman drop out or what? Because I never saw you or anything. And anyway, on the third loop, when we're on the backside, just before mile 75, Suman just comes flying past me, and he's like, I took a nap, and I had about 10 cups of coffee, and I ate a bunch of food, and I'm ready to go. And now keep in mind, at this point, I am struggling just to walk, because if anybody hasn't run Lake Martin, it's up and down, up and down, up and down. And to the point, I mean, if you can hold a 15 or 16 minute mile on that course, you're doing pretty well, which if you know 15 or 16 minute mile, that's kind of a walk. You fly by me, and I just remembered, and it's pitch black dark. I hadn't seen anybody in a couple of hours. And Suman, you just come by, "Hey, Matt, how you doing? I'm ready." And you just flew off. And I think you finished like an hour ahead of me.
Yeah, so something like that. I had a lot of ups and downs in that race. It was just amazing how I could bounce back. I learned a lot of lessons there, and recently I ran 56 mile, 12 hour. I really learned lessons. So I'm going back to the drawing board and how I want to run ultra. So kind of we can talk about that in a future podcast.
Sure.
But yeah, it was an interesting run, and kind of bouncing back and forth from the lows was one of the things for me. You know, I don't quit till I quit. So.
Absolutely.
And so till I see the finishing line usually. So talk about Matt. Tell us about your running journey. How did you start running? Were you like a lifetime runner or the late starter like me?
No, absolutely not. As a kid, I was pretty active with sports. And then I have to be honest with you, pretty much for all of my 20s and into my early 30s, I kind of let myself go. I was not athletic at all. And it wasn't until after I turned 30, going for a checkup to the doctor for for insurance purposes, the doctor kind of had a heart-to-heart with me and said, "Listen, you're on the brink of having to make some choices, either become medicated or get yourself in better shape." And so I went home and I talked with my wife, and I said, "I don't want to be medicated." And so at that point, I just started eating a little bit better, and I started walking every day. And make a long story short, probably within a year or so, I was able to run a 5K, and then I was like, well, let me try a marathon. And then, next thing you know, as most people, they tend to go bigger and better. And what's the next one? And so after running 20 or so marathons, I decided I wanted to start doing a little bit longer distances, which is a different animal for me because you run a little slower, and which I kind of liked. And it was more mental, which I liked as well. And so that's kind of what's led me from running or from walking, say about 12 years ago, I think is when this journey started, to now where I've run a few 100-milers and several 50s and 50Ks and now being involved with M.U.T.S. That's kind of to make that long story short, basically. But I was pretty much just living a sedentary lifestyle and through my 20s, and then finally decided to get myself into better shape in my 30s, and now I'm almost 45. So
So what did push you to go to ultra? I mean, going on a 5K, 10K, and go to marathon and ultra is a pretty big step, correct?
Well, okay. Now in Mississippi, we don't have a lot of trails. Therefore, we don't have a lot of ultra distances. In South Mississippi and Laurel, both Dennis and Renee run the MS 50, and they've been doing it for years, 15 to 20 years. But that's about 2 hours south of here. But other than that, that's for a long time, that's really been the only ultra distance. And about 4 or 5 years ago, John Brower, who is a kind of a legend in Mississippi, a longtime ultra runner who's run several, if not more than that, 100 milers. He helped put on a ultra event in downtown Jackson called the Fondren Urban Ultra, which basically was a 3-mile loop, and it was a 12-hour run. So it was just as many laps as you could do in 12 hours. And I had a lot of friends that were doing it, so I'm like, why not? I'll try it. I got 12 hours, and I knew at that point, a little bit, walk the hills, stay diligent and be responsible with my running. And so I did it, and I really didn't train for it. And I was able to get 50 miles in within the 12-hour time cap. And I'll tell you, it was an experience for me that I don't think I'll ever forget, because it was not as much physical as it was mental. Because I tell you, when I got to mile 31 or whatever it was, I sat in the chair and I was like, well, I did an ultra distance, there I did an ultra. And I remember my wife looking at me, and my wife, who's a non-runner, who has been to so many marathons, God bless her. And she looked at me and she said, no, you're not done. She said, you can get back out there. And I was like, oh my gosh, how many more laps is that? Well, anyway, I just kind of stayed out there and I did it. And from a mental perspective, it was one of the most proud, it was one of the more proud moments that I've ever had, because mentally it can be anguish being out there for that long, because it's just so much easier just to quit.
Yeah, I know.
That's kind of what got me into the ultra at that time. And then we started talking about, what about, longer distances? And me, I've always been a little bit of obsessive compulsive. I tend to take things to the extreme sometimes. Like, I never ran a half marathon before I ran a marathon. A lot of people, they might kind of, I just went straight from a 5K, and I decided I'd sign up, and I did Memphis full marathon. And so anyhow, after doing this 50 miler, I was like, I want to do a 100 miler. So we started looking, and I was looking at different events. And originally, all my family is from Gainesville, Florida. So I'm like, well, I wonder if there's anything down there. And so I saw that there was the Iron Horse 100, which is right outside of Gainesville. And looking at the race review and everything, it was pretty much flat and fast. So I'm like, that's right up my alley, because I knew trying to maybe tackle Pinhoti or something out west would be a little much for a first timer. So we went down to Gainesville, and it was me and Helen Summerford, who is a longtime endurance athlete in the Mississippi area, who's done several ultra distances and multi-time Ironman. And she's really kind of a legend as far as female endurance athletes in this area. We went down, along with a really good friend of mine, Hal Sistrunk. We went down to Gainesville, and it was the three of us to do the Iron Horse. So when we went down, it was a lot of fun. We had our whole crew and everything. We had T-shirts made up. And honestly, other than Helen, we really didn't know what we were getting into. So we showed up the day before, and we were looking around, and we saw all these people, and we kept seeing the Ackerman fur. Mm-hmm. And we're like, what is fur? And we were looking at bumper stickers. People had shirts, and it was FUR. And we finally figured out it was Florida Ultra Running. And we were like, that is just the coolest thing, that there's actually a community like that. So we were looking around, and Hal looked at me, and I looked at Hal, and we looked at Helen, and we said, well, we've got to start. It's a no-brainer. We said, we got to start MER. So we were like, we're going to start the Mississippi Ultra Running. And we were like, oh, yeah, that'd be great. So we ended up doing the race. And it was a great experience. It was obviously, I think for me, it took 25 hours, a little over 25 hours. And Helen, of course, she smoked us. She was 21 or something. And Hal was right behind me. And it was a great experience. And one that I'll never forget, being the first 100 miler. And so when we got back, we were like, well, let's go ahead and launch a Facebook page, Mississippi Ultra Running. And so we did it. And immediately we just started having people that were like, oh, cool. let's get into that. And so we had like a little bit of a social group. It was a closed group on Facebook, Mississippi Ultra Running, and it grew quickly to 100 people. Something like that. And it was just one of those things where people could kind of toss back and forth. So that was kind of the early stages of M.U.T.S.
M.U.T.S, okay.
How that got started.
Definitely. Let's talk about M.U.T.S, and we'll come back to some of the other topics I want to ask. Let's since you kind of lead me into that anyway. So let's talk about M.U.T.S. What is M.U.T.S?
Well, M.U.T.S is the Mississippi Ultra and Trail Society. It is a 501 licensed nonprofit in the state of Mississippi. And kind of go back real quick, when we had M.U.R, Mississippi Ultra Running, I have a background in nonprofit, and there was talk about, well, we would like to do the Sponsored Urban Ultra again. Can we run it? We had people. Is anybody going to put on this race again? And we kind of talked about it. We were like, well, we could help put on this race and whatnot, or maybe we can help do a trail run somewhere. And among discussing it, what I did is I brought together several people in the running community that had run some trails and some ultras, and John Brower being one of them. We all kind of came together and met one day over coffee, and the whole idea was, I thought, well, if we're going to do this, let's do it legit, and let's go ahead and incorporate and look at, let's go ahead and form a board, because Terry Williamson, who's a really good friend of ours, he's an attorney. Joel Neely, who's a very good friend of ours, he's a banker. And then, of course, we've got several other people that, are pretty resourceful. And we're like, well, there we go. We can go ahead and start a board there. But then at that point, what's going to be our vision and what's our mission? And so we talked to John a little bit. And John abstained from being in this because he has other conflicts. But he really kind of pointed us in some directions. But John, being so busy with his running schedule and whatnot, he didn't want to be on the board, but he would be a big supporter. So we were kind of looking, and we looked at other areas close to us. And immediately we looked at the Birmingham area. And we also looked at Georgia with what they were doing. And we saw Georgia had GUTS, which is Georgia Ultra Trail Society. And then we looked at BUTS, which is Birmingham Ultra Trail Society. And we looked at their visions and their mission statements and everything. And we were like, look, we really admire everything that they're doing. And it seems so simple that, could we grift some of that and form something? And we all looked at each other and we said, well, what we have to change the name to? Instead of M.U.R, it's got to be M.U.T.S. So there you go. That's how M.U.T.S started. It started from M.U.R and then us taking a look at GUTS and then BUTS. That was the creation of M.U.T.S. And now we have been in existence. We formed in January of 2006. So now we are, a year and 3 months into a year and 4 months.
Okay. So 2016, you're saying?
Yes, correct.
Okay. Yeah. That's pretty cool story. So tell us about, you are basically based off Jackson, correct? Jackson, Mississippi area.
We are. A lot of us live in the Jackson, Madison, Brandon, Flowood area, which is all just suburbs of Jackson. We are Mississippi Ultra Trail Society, so we do have members because this is a membership-based nonprofit. And right now, we just actually started going active with membership the first of this year. And right now, I want to say we're around 80 members, which is not bad considering we just launched. But we have members all the way down in South Mississippi, all the way up to North Mississippi, close to Tennessee. But as far as events at this point, we are just putting on 4 events and helping out with a 5th event in the Jackson area at this point.
Definitely. One of the things I was going to ask you is what kind of trail system do you have around Jackson or wherever you guys run? Well,
that's the biggest obstacle, and I think that's one of the reasons why something like this hasn't come to fruition sooner is because in Jackson, or in Mississippi rather, that there is a lack of trail systems. It's not like Birmingham where you have Oak Mountain and all these other just fascinating, Lake Martin, a little bit further south, just all these great places. We don't really have that. We don't have the elevation change in the central part of the state. North part of the state, there are some trails, but around Jackson, there is a little bit of a struggle. Around the Natchez Trace Parkway, which runs from Natchez Natchez all the way, I believe, to, I want to say it runs to Kentucky, which is a national parkway. There are some trail systems that we have helped kind of help develop and bring to life a little bit. And we're working on some more at this point. But right now, M.U.T.S is, we for the first year and a half, we really it's more about a social group, and our fundraising efforts thus far have been more to help build the social community, and we would like to get more involved with helping with education and trail development, because our vision is really just to educate and to help provide a atmosphere for people to get into trails and to for ultra running. Because a lot of people, they think of M.U.T.S, they think we're crazy, that we're all like you who wants to go run a 100-miler every other weekend. That's not it at all. We helped out with a Kick Up the Dust. I want to say it was a shorter race, a 10K and maybe a 5K or something like that, trail run. And it was one of the more successful ones. And we couldn't believe all of the turnout of people that came to run trails for the first time. And I'm talking about people that had been running for a long time that showed up to run trails for the first time. And so that's been kind of neat to watch that grow. And over the year and a half, I think our Facebook closed group is now around 500 people.
That's pretty cool. Yeah, that's with the struggle with your not having a big trail system like what we have around here, because we're pretty close to Pinhoti, and then Birmingham has at least 4 parks that we can run easily, from 40 to 100 miles or 15 to 6 miles to 100 miles. We're gonna have a 100-mile here pretty soon. So
I know
that's crazy talk here, but. Tell us about if you need to develop a trail system in your area. Is there a way you guys can purchase a land in the future? Is that any part of your vision, or at least have a state or somebody donate?
We've looked at a couple different options. One option would be to find lease land. There is a mountain biking group in the Jackson area that has lease land available. But that's really mainly just for mountain bikers. And we looked at that as an option. But like I said earlier, there's some land that's federal land along the Natchez Trace that we've been able to kind of get into. There are some other properties that are in the works, and we've looked at ways to help raise money with some matching grants. I know there's some grants out there through Patagonia and Columbia, and a lot of these companies are willing to help out nonprofits as long as they're putting money back into the environment. But at this point, we haven't really been able to do as much as we probably would like. But like I said, we're still very young. I mean, at this point, we're just scratching the surface of what I assume we'll end up doing long term.
Definitely, and having a group of people who's passionate about it kind of helps to get the vision going. So I think that's how I look at it.
Well, I tell you, Suman, it's been amazing. Just with the people that have come up to us and with so much thanks, telling us thank you for what we're doing. And that's been the most rewarding. Look, I just like to run. I just want to get out there and run, and I like the camaraderie. But having people coming up to us and saying, listen, we really appreciate everything that you guys are doing. We didn't know how much fun this was. Most people, when they think of trail running, especially in this area, now in Birmingham, in your area, people are a little bit more, they're more seasoned. But over here, it seems like when you talk about trail running, people tend to think like they're about to go snow skiing or something, like they have to have all of this special equipment, or they don't have the right gear, or the other part will think, well, I might get hurt or something like that. But when they get out there and they kind of get in the groove, they get lost. They not really lost, but I'm talking like they just get lost in the moment, and they love it because they're out there being one with the nature, which is so much cooler than just running out on the asphalt all the time.
Definitely. One thing I would like to mention to you, basically all the M.U.T.S friends, that the part of Birmingham trail running, I mean, we've been here for a while, but really the organized trail running has not been here too long. Prior to M.U.T.S, we all ran our own stuff, Then and then M.U.T.S happened, then we became more organized.
When I came over for the Lake Martin, I have to tell you, all the M.U.T.S crew that was at the top of Heaven Hill, they were so great. And I'll tell you, and I sat, of course, towards especially towards the last few times that I ran by when I was not in a hurry, I got to talking to them, and they were just so polite, and they were very insightful, and I told them who we were, and they were just so supportive. And then also David Tosh, who ran the race, just really top-notch people. And we can't say enough good things about the people of Alabama and the trail running. And we are actually there's a big group of us heading over in November to run Pinhoti, and we are really looking forward to that as well.
I saw that your note, so I may be at Pinhoti. I have not decided. I'm going to train.
Have you run that race before?
Yeah, I've done that. I had a horrible experience, but it was my fault. It was my fault.
Oh, okay.
It's just you know how I like to go fast and then slow.
Sure.
But I stayed with it and finished. But it's about first 80 miles or whatever before you get to Pinnacle is not difficult. You know, the trails are really wonderful, so you're gonna like it. So
good.
First, just don't get too overwhelmed with the first 40 miles. We'll bring in the more Pinhoti podcast later, and we had it from last year as well. Mm-hmm. So you may want to go back and listen to some of my Pinhoti podcasts. So I did a bunch of series on that.
Great. But well, yeah, I think I ran into a couple videos or something that you had done, and it was pretty insightful. So. Yeah,
definitely. But one of the things that M.U.T.S does, and as a trail, we also go do a lot of volunteer work. Even one of the biggest race here in Birmingham is the Mercedes Marathon, and we have a M.U.T.S what do you call water stop aid station here for the roadies, you know, and because half of us, we run half a trail, half a roads, you know, I'm both on road and trail, so kind of puts the name out, you know, bring that passion of trail to the road, and that's also you guys may want to look at it. Talk about the events. Tell us about what are the events coming up. I know you have a bunch of races coming up.
We do. So we decided that we wanted to just kind of a fundraising aspect along with our membership to kind of help us brand ourselves and to help with some of the extra stuff. We decided that we wanted to have about 4 races a year. And so our first race was the Fondren Urban Ultra. Originally, we had that race in the fall. That race is now, that's kind of a staple race. That is a 12-hour ultra, and that will be held I want to say that's going to be held in April, next April. We just missed it. But anyway, we're going to have it again next April. But in July, we are going to be taking over a long-time race called the Big Butts 100. And it is out at Big Butts Park and the Choctaw Trails, which is half single-track trail and half cross-country. And it's a 100K run, a 50K run, and we're going to have a 100K relay. And I want to say that this will probably be the 7th or 8th year, I could be mistaken, of that race. And there's only been a handful of people that have been able to achieve the 100K, not because of elevation change or anything. It's because it's in July in Mississippi, and you can imagine.
Definitely.
So we have that race coming up in July. That is Big Butts 100. And then I want to say in the fall, we have another one, which is really going to be a great race called Ways Bluff 50K. And that's at Camp Bratton Green and the Gray Center, which is in Canton, Mississippi, just north of Jackson. And that's a beautiful little camp setting that will be a 50K, a 25K, and an 8-mile fun run. And that is in November. Yeah, I think it's in October. Yeah, October for that one. And then in February, we're going to have the Frosty 15, which is a 15-mile trail run. So we got like four events that we're putting on. And but yeah, all on MUTSrunning.org, which is our website.
Yeah, I'm looking at the website at this moment, and yeah, you have those listed here, upcoming events and races, and it looks good. So when you do this kind of races, are they most of them are trail, or I know that one is urban, but what kind of trail are they? They're flat trails, or
that's a good question. Okay, so Big Butts that's coming up in July. That's, like I said, it's single track and cross country. It's not very technical for you guys. It would be extremely flat and fast, but there's a few dips on the single track once you get into the woods, but it's relatively flat and fast. Really what you're dealing with there is the heat. The Ways Bluff 50K that we're having out in Canton in October, that is going to be relatively flat. I think that's probably be our fastest course, and that's going to be really a beautiful course. Some single track, some wide open, and then in February when we have the Frosty 15, we have that out at the Florida Boundary Trail along the Natchez Trace, and that is definitely more technical. That is similar to Lake Martin with the footing, a lot of ups and downs, not that kind of climb, but it's a pretty technical for the Frosty 15. And then for the Fondren Urban Ultra, it is a street run, but it is in Fondren, which is downtown Jackson, which is extremely hilly. It's almost like Birmingham, where you're up and down, and it's deceptively hilly. The Mississippi Blues Marathon, which a lot of people deem as one of the more hilly marathons in the country, a lot of it is on that course.
Definitely, I have done that Blues a couple of times, at least one time, and year
it's pretty hilly. There's some hills in there that'll get you. So
yeah, that was a hilly course, but you mentioned several times about Natchez Trace Trail. People who don't know about this, you mentioned a little bit earlier. Tell us about how far you're from that start of the trailhead, maybe.
Well, okay, so we have the Ross Barnett Reservoir, which is it's like northeast of Jackson. So it borders Madison County and Rankin County and Hinds County. And going around that is the Natchez Trace Parkway. In Madison County or in Ridgeland, if you kind of follow the Natchez Trace around the reservoir, there's a couple of trailheads up there. One of them called the West Florida Boundary, and that particular trail is called the Yakimukini Trail, which runs, I want to say right now it's pretty manicured for about 15 miles, which we use for the Frosty 15, but there is actually some trail work that is scheduled to be done to take it a total of like 27 miles. So that's kind of our bread and butter trail right there. And that is just north of Jackson. And and then the other trail that we use a lot is M.U.T.S Park, which is actually west of Jackson. It's southwest Jackson in an area called Clinton. And M.U.T.S Park is it's a multi-purpose park that they use for soccer fields, and there's some wooded area behind it. And linked to it on the other side is the Choctaw Trail, which is used for a lot of colleges and their cross country.
Got you. It's a big park area. We have those
exactly.
We have those like that around Birmingham too. But yeah, it sounds like a Natchez Trail. If you can get access to that over the years, 10 years plan, maybe.
And there are more in the works. Like Mays Lake, which is in downtown Jackson, which is a nature area. There is a 4-mile trail back there that we're looking at hosting a group run in the next month or so, just to try to get people out. And a lot of people don't know where the trails are, and that's another thing. And that's part of our mission is to just try to educate people. Hey, you can go run here. So what we've been doing is we're hosting monthly group runs, and where we'll host everybody to come out. We'll provide coffee and donuts and water and all that, and they just come out and meet. And we had a group run this past Saturday, and we had about 30 people show up, and they had a blast. And that's what it's about.
Definitely, that was my other question: is if I arrive in Jackson, Mississippi, if I want to run some trails, who do I look for, or how do I find?
Assuming if you decide to come to Jackson, we're going to get a huge group. Trust me, and we'll have a good time. But we are. We're along with our website. We're efforting, looking at doing some upgrades where we can really have more interaction on our website, where we can have things posted as far as like where the group runs are going to be. But right now through Facebook on our M.U.T.S page, if you're not on M.U.T.S, just click on there on Facebook, ask to join the group, get in the group, and then at that point, it's just an open forum. So if you're ever going to be in town, just say, hey, I'm coming to town. Where can I run? Who wants to run? And it's such a fellowship, as you well know.
Trail group is pretty cool, laid back. We're we're different than the road, and I switch back and forth, and I'm the same person. And so,
well, I'll tell you, for a long time I ran on the road, and I remember trying to qualify for Boston and going to do speed work and all that, which is great. I mean, I enjoyed those days. But going from that to, meeting up with Helen, Tiffany, Joel, Terry, Mike, Hal, when we all meet up, we're like, okay, well, let's just go run. And it's very low stress. We just want to get out there and just run and have a good time and just keep one foot in front of the other.
Definitely. Tell us about, you focus most of Jackson as kind of being a central Mississippi. Have you tried to expand, I know that you have members from the south and north, but have you tried to find some trails in north or south, do any events in those areas too?
Well, there are trails available. There are a lot of trails in South Mississippi. I know the Pine Belt Runners, which is down Hattiesburg and Laurel, which is South Mississippi. There's a lot of running down there. And then North Mississippi, they're the Oxford Running Group. Around Ole Miss. And I know there's a lot of trails in some northern counties. Our board consists right now of 9 members, and we all live in the Jackson area. And this being, our second year, it's on the docket for us to expand and to really try to grow in that area. Now, how we do that, who knows? We might end up hosting some sort of run up in North Mississippi because we do have members up there, or could a future board decide to maybe branch off and have northern board members? I don't know, but it's going to happen because Mississippi, just like Alabama, there's a lot of people who like to run, but just don't really know where to run the trails. So M.U.T.S, that is our goal long term, is for it to grow statewide.
Definitely. That's one of the things we have done over the years for us is basically in Birmingham area, we got a lot of trail runners, and then Huntsville has its own pockets of trail runners.
Well, there are other groups. I know there's the North Shore Running Group out in Louisiana, and they've held races, the Badlands 50, and there's some other groups that run trail runs in Mississippi. And the really cool thing about all this, Suman, is this is totally non-competitive. So if Suman wanted to open Suman's Ultra Trail Society and base it in Jackson, you know what? Great. Because honestly, we don't care. It's all about just getting more people out running. We're not territorial. We don't care who's running races. Honestly, we really don't, because the more people out there running, the better it is for everyone. And I know I've used the corny analogy before. The higher the water raises, so do the boats that are in it, type thing. And that's true because, but there are other groups that are putting on. A part of our goal is to let people know about those groups, because we want them to advertise on M.U.T.S. We're totally cool. I don't mind. Honestly, at the end of the day, we just want people out there running either trails, or if they want to, get kind of spunky with it, if they want to try an ultra distance, then that's perfect. Let them do it. And for us to be a part of that in some sort of way, that's what we're here for.
Definitely. Matt, it takes a lot of people to put a organization together, and I know you have big support of friends and families and our running families to do this kind of event and to do day in and day out, go out with you. Tell us about them. How does the community contribute?
Well, I'll tell you, when I started this, I never would have thought that other people would have been as passionate as me. And our board, we have a lot of people that really care, and they care more about the vision and the mission than they do really about themselves. And I can't say it enough. They've been great. But not just that, it's been people in the community, in the running community. They love it, and they really appreciate what we're doing, and they're always like, I'll help in any way I can. And I'll tell you another thing too, Suman, which is interesting. We've approached a few merchants, Buffalo Peak, Fleet Feet Sports, Stinky Feet, which is a local, and a lot of these groups, you know, although they're competitors, they've been very appreciative of what we do, and we're there to help them. We try to point people in the direction, and we don't ask them for anything really. I mean, they help out with like membership stuff. They'll give like some discounts in a card or something for people who are members on an annual basis. But really for us, it's like if we can point people in the right direction to where to buy trail shoes, then that's really what it's about. And so the merchants have really helped out, and I think they appreciate the fact that we're not in it for profit. I mean, we're just in it just to educate people. So they're very appreciative. The general public's very appreciative. And of course, our board of directors it's been awesome. It really has. So this past year and a half, our board flips over after the end of this year, and I'm assuming that some of us will probably roll off and new people will come in. But I look forward to being involved with M.U.T.S forever. I mean, as long as it's around, I'm always going to help. And just like I would always help Butts or I would always help Guts. And it's just the camaraderie. I think us being a part of building that camaraderie in the running community when it comes to trails and ultra running, that's something that's a really proud moment for me. And I think it is for the rest of our board.
Who else is in your board? How big is your board for your organization?
We have 9 board members, board president, vice president, treasurer, secretary. We have a head of a race director, event coordinator rather. And then also we have someone that is over memberships. And then we have another person that kind of handles a lot of the merchandise. We have 2 people that really handle a lot, the go-betweens with a lot of the merchants and whatnot. So, and we all like to run.
Definitely.
And we'll probably all be over there in November in Hody.
In Hody, so. Definitely. Matt, we talked about a lot of trail running in Mississippi, central Mississippi. So people, if they want to join your organization, tell us how they can join and what they're looking forward for, or people like us just visiting the state and want to run with people from Jackson. Tell us how to get in touch. You did mention a little bit. Let's put that word out again.
Sure. Now, we do have a page on Facebook. It's M.U.T.S, M.U.T.S. It's Mississippi Ultra and Trail Society. We do have a group on Facebook. It is a closed group, but go on there and just request to be in it, and we'll throw you right in there. And that's kind of an open forum. That's a great way to kind of communicate back and forth with other like-minded individuals. I think we have about 500 members. Now, if you would like to know more about our organization as far as our vision and mission statement, you can go to mutsrunning.org. And that'll give you a list of all of our board members, our mission, vision, and then some of our race stuff. And if you would like to be a M.U.T.S member, we do annual memberships. It's, I believe it's $40 for an individual, and it's $80 for a family up to 4. And that money goes straight to M.U.T.S with some of our causes. And with that, you get a bunch of swag and discounts and all that good stuff. But you can check us out at M.U.T.S on Facebook. We're also on Twitter, and we do have an Instagram. But M.U.T.S is really M.U.T.S on Facebook is the main forum that we have. And then you can check us out at mutsrunning.org.
Definitely. Matt, before we close this interview, so give us a word of advice to the beginner runners and people who have a dream to be ultra runner one day and be a part of running community like you have immersed yourself into it.
I would be very weary about comparing yourself to other people. What you need to do is you need to push yourself to your limits. Your limit this week might be a 5K. Do something. Push yourself. Make yourself get out there and get uncomfortable. If it's a 5K, if it's a half marathon, if it's a marathon, make goals for yourself. Don't sit around. Make goals and achieve them. And I tell people all the time, running a 100-miler is not hard. Deciding to run a 100-miler and training for a 100-miler, that's where the rubber meets the road. And that's what I try to tell people. But my wife told me 100 miles, that's it. I'm not doing a 200-miler. I'm telling you, Sumi, don't let me do it. I'm not doing it. So, but look, that's what I tell people. I'm like, just push yourself, whether it's doing a mile. I remember the first time I ran a mile without stopping. I felt as good about that as I did the first time running a marathon. That's what I try to tell folks.
Definitely. I still remember running 1.6 mile without stopping, or 3 miles without stopping. It was a great moment for me.
And you know what you've been doing ever since? You've been trying to get that same feeling. You've been chasing that feeling. That's why you've run. How many marathons have you run since?
That was my 87th marathons and ultramarathons.
And you're trying to get that feeling from the very first one every time.
Yeah, I'm still trying. I will eventually.
Well, guess what? You're probably not going to get it. But look, at least you're having a good time. It's just not going to be as great as the first time.
Definitely. But Will, that was a great word of advice, and it was great talking to you. Thanks for your time. And hopefully I will see you if I don't come to Jackson before. I had a plan to come in June, but I think I have to be an event locally.
July.
In July, I mean,
towards
I'm
the end
sorry.
of July, I'm telling you, you need to hop in. Big Butts is going to be a great one. Or you can come over, try to run the 100K, or get you a crew and relays, 2 to 4 people. So you can have a good old time. But Suman, you're awesome, man. I appreciate everything that you do.
No problem. The same to you. Thanks for doing all the things at Mississippi. And let's see each other at Pinhoti. Either I'll be running the race or running the aid station at I think our group usually runs the Cheeha Mountain, the top of the Cheeha.
You got it, buddy.
So we'll see you. We'll see you at the Pinhoti.
Thank you, man.
Thanks for your time. If you have a need to cover your events, from marketing to taking photos, please contact mruns.com by emailing at marathonruns@gmail.com. Thanks for listening to another episode of M.U.T.S podcast. Please subscribe to our podcast channel, Voice of Runners, at iTunes, Stitcher Radio, Google Play, and more. And also follow our social media channel, Marathon Runs, on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube.